Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here. So I finally finished the Shenhe math. Oh my god, there's so much math. I did like 500 plus rows of figures. But that was because I was a bit greedy. I was trying to do too many things at one time. So I'm going to split whatever I've done in the past few days into two videos. So the first video is going to be this video, which is basically Shenhe 1.1. Where we talk about the changes since Math Guide 1 and also factoring in Shenhe with the burst buff, because I also need to correct what I said previously, because I missed an important point, which was that her stats are counted independently across characters, which means that Shenhe herself has her own number of stats, Ganyu herself has her own number of stats. So once we factor that in, it means that we can use Shenhe's buff, burst. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and then we will look at my Ganyu stats just to quickly run through, and we will look at Bennett versus Shenhe in terms of buffing my Ganyu, just the charge attack crit damage comparison. Yeah, we'll do it with buff, with the burst buff, as well as with a fully built Kazuha. And then I'll talk about what I'll cover in the next video. Next video will be the full rotation, but of course focusing only on Ganyu's damage. Let's first talk about the burst. Since her ICQ stats are calculated independently for each character, Shenhe will still provide 5 or 7 stats depending on press or hold to your other characters, while she herself will only have 4 or 6 stats because her ICQ, or rather her elemental skill, does cryo damage and you will take up the stat, assuming you hit only one opponent. Okay. Now, elemental burst. Her elemental burst is really good because since her quill stats are calculated independently for each character, you can go ahead and cast a burst. Sorry, why do I keep saying that? You can go ahead and cast a burst that is buffed by her stats while still maintaining stats and providing burst buff, which is effectively 15% cryo damage while in the AoE field of her burst, 15% cryo resistance shred, and 15% crit damage at C2 to other cryo DPS, which makes this very nice. Okay, so these are the points I want to talk about, and I'll talk more about how this impacts the comparison between if you use her burst and if you don't use her burst in terms of buffing other cryo DPS. Okay, now let's talk about Shenhe changes since Math Guide 1, because there have been some changes in the beta, and essentially Shenhe normal attack multipliers have been reduced. Unfortunately, I've not done her main DPS math, so I don't actually have the original figures, so I can't do a comparison. But bear in mind that even if her NA reduced, her elemental skill actually got buffed, so it might help, it might negate. Okay, but that's only if you want to do a main DPS build, and honestly, main DPS Shenhe I feel is a option, a luxury option, if you have C6 Shenhe together with a Chongyun. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend a main DPS Shenhe build without C6. You gotta remember that her stats are limited without C6, at least for normal attacks and charge attacks. And the way it works for normal attacks is that you're gonna have to spam it a lot, unlike say on Ganyu's charge attack where it's every 2 seconds, right? So the impact is much bigger. If the impact of the limit of her stats is much bigger on her, if you want to use her as a main DPS without C6, without her C6. Alright, now let's talk about the elemental skill changes. Effectively, the press damage has been increased slightly. It's about a 3% increase when you look at this to this, not factoring in any of the usual damage bonuses, crit rate, etc. Okay, just looking at these percentage figures. Level 9 hold, no change, which means that the... Sorry, not level 9 hold. The whole skill itself, there's no change, whether it's level 9 or level 12. Buff, on the other hand, has been improved. You'll see from level 9, for level 9 buff, for level 9 buff, you go from 72.49% to 77.62%. For level 12 buff, you go from 85.28 to 91.31. Effectively, it's about a 7% increase. Okay, this is really good. And another important change is her A1 passive. You'll see this if you look at it in the Chinese stats on the specific website. An active character within the field created by Divine Maiden's Deliverance gains 15% cryo damage bonus. So effectively, the cryo damage bonus has been increased from 10 to 15%. So these are actually good changes to improve her buffing abilities, which will buff her nerf or normal attack as well. Okay, bear this in mind. I actually welcome this change, but I would love it if they increase the stats as well, the stat limits. Although if you saw my rotation math, if you see my rotation math in the next video, you'll see that the stats actually aren't too bad. But I'll talk more about that later, or rather in the next video. Okay, so my Ganyu stats, right? The Ganyu stats here are based on my Ganyu with a R5 Amos, since we are focusing on buff effects here. We're not focusing on Ganyu's damage per se. We're really focusing on what the buffs from Bennett and Shenhe do for Ganyu. I also not factoring in Ganyu C4 because anyway, this is just looking at the crit damage. And that C4 really takes time to stack up and it's more effective second burst onwards. Which means, in the Melt Com, right, it's not going to come into play. Throughout this video, I will be using Bennett to compare since he's like the buffer benchmark, right? Everyone's buffer benchmark. Every time there's a new character that does buff, everyone likes to compare that new character to Bennett. So might as well use it here, okay? Now, in fact, for a Ganyu Melt Com, I'll say that you should use both Bennett and Shenhe. Okay, just bear this in mind. This is just for comparison and benchmark purposes. It's not an indication or me trying to say that we should replace Shenhe with Bennett. That's not the case. Alright. Just a quick look at my Shenhe's, or rather my Ganyu's figures, and see how many rows there are. Okay, my Ganyu, her attack right now is at 2575. Yeah, ignore that figure. I'm not using this figure anyway in my math. Her attack running is 2575. Crit rate is 64.9, crit damage is 210.4%. Okay, and with her R5 Amos for easy effect. We will take it that there's 3 stats. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of figures. We'll take it, sorry, that's overshot. That's meant for the next video. We'll take it that there's three stats, because that's by default what you will get from her charge attack, because of how her charge attack works. But I'm not going to go too much into detail on that because that's Ganyu, that's not Shenhe. So let's go into the comparison itself. We'll do a Bennett versus Shenhe charge attack crit damage comparison. Okay, this crit damage, it is not factoring in how much a crit is. It's just if you crit. Okay, so you see here, it's pretty straightforward. We have the same usual type of build as per Shenhe Math Guide 1, where we have the 2 Glads, 2 Shimmy attack buffer build, the 4 Blizzard, 4 Blizzard means a sharp DPS and 4 Blizzard hybrid, together the 2 Blizzard, 2 Shimmy in a non-freeze comp, because obviously 4 Blizzard should be used in the freeze comp, yeah? So we are going to compare fully built Bennett as well as F2P Bennett. So fully built Bennett is effectively a C5 Bennett with level 13 burst and character level 19, along with a weapon level 19 Aquila Fervonia, which is the highest base attack you can get in the game right now. F2P Bennett, the stats of our F2P Bennett will be C1, level 9 burst, character level 80 with a level 80 prototype Rancor, because not everyone has early flash, right? Whereas prototype Rancor is easy to get. So these are the damage figures, the actual crit damage figures that you will see in game for both hits, which is the first hit as well as the bloom. Okay. So Shenhe, these are the figures. You will see that these are all single target, by the way. You'll see that Shenhe versus fully built Bennett, we do have some where Bennett is better, and I'll talk more about this now. So the cells highlighted in light red are scenarios where Bennett's buff is better than Shenhe's buff, but bear in mind this is without Shenhe's burst buff. Effectively, these are mostly when you build Shenhe as a sub DPS instead of pure attack buffer. So you see here sub DPS, and your E is level 9. If you have a level 12 E on Shenhe, which requires C3, Shenhe, So that will give you better figures than Bennett. Obviously, it's a higher level of investment, so it should give you better, right? Against a F2P Bennett, just looking at the crit damage figure against a single target, Shenhe will always do better. These are the percentage figures if you guys want to know what's the range like. Effectively, it's about 6% to 15 against a fully built Bennett. If your Bennett is more F2P, right, then your Shenhe can give about 16.6 more or 19.7 more, which is about 20. So 17 to 20% more if I just look at a C0 setup. Okay, C0 Shenhe. However, since Shenhe's burst provides substantial buffs, 15% cryo damage, recently it just got increased from 10 to 15, up to 15% resistance shred, and 15% crit damage at Shenhe C2. And since ICQ stats are independently counted for team members, let's see what the buff damage is like with Shenhe's buff burst included. So with her burst buff, this is what you'll get. You'll see that the crit damage figures has now reached 6 figures, right, with the 2 hits, without melt. And you'll see the percentage figures are now all positive, which means that Shenhe is always better than Bennett once you include her burst buff. So with Shenhe's burst buff included, now we have a substantial advantage against a fully built Bennett. A full attack Shenhe provides 20 to 45% more, which is here to here. Okay, 20 to 45% more, depends on all your permutation. Okay, I should have explained this earlier, but this C0 and C1 at the very first leftmost here, this is Ganyu's Constellation. Any CX that you see in the bracket is Shenhe's. Okay, so this is Shenhe C2 level 9 buff with level 9 burst buffing a C0 Ganyu. Okay. Now a sub DPS Shenhe will obviously be lower. We have 6% to 32% here. This is sub DPS, this is sub DPS, and hybrid you will get 13 to 36%. So it's very nice. And against the F2P banner, your full attack Shenhe is going to buff even more. It goes all the way up to 60% here, which is a tremendous buff. 32 to 60%. And sub DPS Shenhe, you have 17 to 45%. And hybrid Shenhe, you will be 24 to 50. So all in all, I'll say, yeah, she gives really good buffs, but this is a comparison where people might say it's unfair, because they will say you can use a Kazuha in Meltcom, or Venti or Sucrose in Freezecom, and the cryo resistance shred from her burst will have diminishing effect. True, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. I even saw someone saying that her crit damage bonus plus previously 10% plus the cryo resistance shred, with it being half after you have factored in VV, right? 4-piece VV effect. They are saying that it's 17.5%. 10 plus 15 divided by 2, 7.5 equals 17.5%. That's not correct. Okay, I need to say this. Even if cryo resistance has a diminishing effect where it goes into the half value, more often than not, that 7.5 is going to be, it's not equivalent to a 7.5 damage bonus. It's nowhere equivalent to that, because you gotta understand that damage bonus, they are all added together. All the different damage bonuses, be it normal attack, charge attack, elemental damage bonus, etc. All of them are all added together in one common pool as a multiplier. So whereas resistance shred, the sources of resistance shred is much lesser. Okay, so resistance shred will always have a higher value than damage bonus. You cannot lump them together and think that, oh, that's the amount, total amount that I will get. It does not work that way. Okay, guys? Or ladies. So, with that being said, right, I'm going to go one step better. I'm going to do Kazuha, and I'm going to include R5 Freedom Swan, so that the 15% cryo damage bonus from A1 passive also has even bigger diminishing returns. Because a R5 fully EM Kazuha is going to buff you a lot. I'll show you guys next. what I mean. Okay, so in all the figures first, let's look at this portion here first. The Kazuha stats I will use here are based on my Kazuha. So 985 EM with a R5 Freedom Swan. 985 EM is before C2's effect. In other words, my Kazuha provides about 378 attack. This is specific to Ganyu. 39% cryo damage. 32% normal attack / charge attack boost from Freedom Swan. This is from Freedom Swan, this is from Freedom Swan, this is from Kazuha himself. 40% resistance strat 4-piece VV and 200 EM to my Ganyu at C2. Not that it matters in the figures here, it will matter in the next video. Okay, in the next video I'll start putting melt in. And once I put melt in for the calculations, then the EM matters. Okay, so now you see Bennett's figures are also have also crossed the 100k threshold. That's for sure, right? Because Kazuha is buffing so much. But you'll notice that our Shenhe figures are still higher. Just look at this. Okay, it's still all positive. Granted, there is some drop in the buffs, but it's still all higher than Bennett's. And let's look at the details here. So even with all of Kazuha's buffs and resistance strat thrown in, Shenhe still buffs more than Bennett. Against a fully built Bennett, full attack Shenhe provides 15 to 31% more. Sub DPS Shenhe is 3 to 20% over here. And hybrid is about 9 to 24%. So it's still a very substantial boost. Even if I throw in a animal character, even if I make both buffs from Shenhe in terms of the damage bonus as well as the resistance strat, even if I give these two very high diminishing returns with Kazuha, I'm still giving a greater buff than Bennett. Okay, let that sink in. Yeah. So I hope it's clear enough. Okay, sorry, I forgot to mention F2P Bennett. F2P Bennett is 26 to 44% on the full attack Shenhe. 13% to 31%. Sorry, there's a typo here. This should be 31%. And hybrid Shenhe is 19 to 35%. So I hope it's clear enough that even with tons of damage bonuses thrown in and 4-piece VV effect, Shenhe still provides a substantial boost over Bennett, especially if you build for full attack. Yeah, sorry, it got cut off a bit. Just like Kazuha, she provides significantly better buffs than Bennett, because Kazuha also buffs more than Bennett. I still remember how people say that, oh, he's just an EM Sucrose. Yeah, sorry, he's just a 5-star Sucrose. Yeah, I think I don't need to say anything about that. Everyone knows how good Kazuha is now. So, just like Kazuha, she provides significantly better buffs than Bennett, although she is limited to Cryo. But Cryo has 2 of the top tier DPS, and also one of the best comps in the game, which is Freeze Comp. Is it really that big of a problem if she's limited to Cryo? I actually don't think so. Unless you don't have those top tier cryo DPS and you don't have Freeze Comp. But if you don't have Freeze Comp, I really recommend you to do it, because even my F2P account is using Ayaka Freeze Comp. Out of the limited 5 stars I have, I'm lucky. Out of the limited 5 stars I have, I do have Venti, I do have Ayaka, I do have Mona. So that's how I make my Freeze Comp work. And my 4th is Diona. But trust me, Freeze Comp is really good. That's what I'm using on my F2P account. Although I have not logged into my F2P account for more than 2 months. But I was using it for a very long time. I mean, since Ayaka was released until 2 months ago. Okay? So, her being limited to Cryo, I really don't think it's that big of an issue. I don't see Cryo DPS becoming really bad in the near foreseeable future. Unless Dendro reaction with Cryo is very bad. But even then, once the Dendro hype or craze period of Sumeru is over, Cryo will still have its strong place, so it's not a problem. I just want to share also, before the recent changes to Shenhe, I already reached this conclusion. Just is the only difference now is with the changes to Shenhe, the buff is widened. The gap versus Bennett is widened, which means the percentage figures here are bigger. So like for example, like previously, this 3% was something like 0.2 or 0.1%. So you can say that it's the same, but it is still slightly higher than Bennett. So as for the stats, I have already done, because the next people is going to complain about Shenhe, right? The people who hate on her are just going to say that, oh yeah, you included VV, you included burst buff, etc., but you didn't talk about the stats. Now the reason why I did not talk about her stats here is because her stats will require me to do a full rotation, right? Because we need to do a full rotation and see what's the impact without the stats, versus say if you still have a Bennett buff. Again, using Bennett as a buffer, as a benchmark comparison, not saying that you should replace Bennett with Shenhe in a melt comp. So I have done the math. I can tell you that there's no real change to the conclusion, or except for certain scenarios, like for example when there's more enemies. And I will show you guys how big of a difference it is, what is the impact, etc. in the next video. Because if I do that in this video will become another 1 hour long video. So I am trying to sort of split my content up so that it's shorter, it's more digestible. Okay. So in the next video, I'll talk about Shenhe in melt comp and how the stat limits are going to come into play. Even with C0 or C1. And if you do her rotation right, I mean, I'm going to give you a spoiler, but if you do her rotation right, even at C0, you are actually able to make use of 2 elemental skills worth of stats. And I'll explain that more. If C1, you can use up to 3. So we'll eventually cover Ganyu, in terms of the Shenhe series, right, the math series, we'll eventually cover Ganyu in freeze comp. I'll cover Ayaka in freeze comp. I mean, the next one obviously is Ganyu melt comp. After Ganyu melt comp, it will be Ganyu freeze comp, Ayaka freeze comp, Shenhe sub DPS or min DPS comparisons, weapon comparisons. Okay, but I have to put Shenhe math videos on pause probably after the next video, the Ganyu melt video. Or we may have to pause it after this because I need to do Itto videos. We already halfway through this week. There's less than a week to Itto. It's about 6 days to Itto. So I will have to resume my Itto videos. I've been wanting to do that Itto update for so long. But Shenhe came out and then, you know, that's what we have been doing the past 2 weeks. So we'll do Itto video, and I also want to do other Red Horn related video. Like for example, maybe someone like Noelle with Red Horn, or Yola with Red Horn, or Itto with other weapons. I also want to do a permutation of Itto with double crown, because if you are going to go all on him, it's actually very worth it to crown his burst as well as his normal attacks for his Kisagiri damage output. For his elemental skill, you don't really need to crown it per se. You know, if you like the character enough, you're using the character a lot, why not? So I'll do some math on that as well for Itto. So yeah, that's what I'll do moving forward. Okay, and in fact, I'm going to try to see if I can do another video in less than 24 hours, which is the Ganyu melt comp, because I actually have the full damage figures, everything ready. It's just that I have not done the analysis and the percentage comparisons. Okay, so I hope this is helpful to you guys. Really, I hope I have convinced you guys that her buff is definitely better than Bennett against a single target. And in the next Ganyu melt comp, I'll talk about the Ganyu melt comp, the rotations, as well as how the stats come into play, the stat limits. And it's not as bad as you think, at least for a melt comp. Honestly, even for freeze comp, right, the stats may be used up quickly, but it's not a bad thing. I'll explain it in those videos. I've already done some thought analysis on it, just that the figures really take me a lot of time. Oh, and another thing I want to talk about is, I just want to quickly mention, right, in freeze comp, your animal character infusing cryo burst will be buffed by Shenhe as well. Remember that, okay? You're gonna have 3 characters who are buffed by Shenhe herself, your Cryo main DPS be Ganyu your Ayaka, as well as the Infused Burst. So it's huge, man. It's huge. And I'll talk about it more in that video. Alright? In fact, the video may have to be 2 weeks later, because now we're gonna do Itto. And I mean, at least for the free scom, it's gonna be 2 weeks later. Because this week I need to do Itto, next week I need to do Itto gameplay videos, right? Now that he's actually released, we can do some proper gameplay videos instead of just math. So anyway, thanks everyone for watching. If you like the content, like the video and click subscribe for more. Bye!